Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to have you here with us in London. Huge congratulations on the film. I guess on paper, covering this event from the confines of basically one room wouldn't be the most thrilling way to tell it, but it absolutely is. You know, the stakes are so high, the tension's on a knife edge. What were some of the challenges of that? But why do you think it's so powerful, the way the story's been told?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a bold move to set it in one setting and hope that people broadcasting from a control room could be a thrilling enough thing to sustain a feature film. But that's the courage of Maritz and Tim who wrote it, and I give them a lot of credit for it because they do keep it thrilling. It's challenging, obviously, it's confined, it's claustrophobic, but it creates obstacles, and those obstacles really push us. So that's nice.
At the heart, why I think it's, you know, a brilliant film is because it raises interesting questions. The questions about media ethics since 1972, and even before that up until today, have remained the same. And I think any film that is set itself the task to only take place in one location, or maybe two, it's very easy to fail if you try that. And I think there is not really a lot of middle ground between it being your failure or very, very good. I feel like when I think of films that have tried that, it's always thrilling. I think that's the reason why. Also, I think I would love to point out our editor, Hans-Jörg Weisbrich, who's just fantastic at adding the rhythm to the thing and to the film. I think a lot of why it's so thrilling has to do with his art.
And I think the other thing that makes it so compelling is, you know, we're there in real time. It's, you know, beat by beat, we're following these journalists. And this technology that, of course, back then was cutting edge, so retro to us. How did you kind of get into the mindset and even understand the technology you were using? Was that kind of an added challenge? And did you have to do any wider research, just kind of understand the context you were acting out in?
I mean, I did a lot of research. I spent 2 months shadowing directors and producers in broadcast control rooms. So that was really important to learn that language and make sure we got it right. I think it's been done in film before, but I think oftentimes it's guessing what it's like in those rooms. This time we wanted to really get it authentic. The machines that we had, Julian Wagner, our production designer, really created this authentic world and had real working reel-to-reels. And we had time to play with them and kind of get a little bit comfortable with them. But that was important. Again, it's a movie about people doing their job, so we wanted to do the job well, showing that they knew what they were doing, because they did.
Working with the technology, being in that set.
Well, I have the benefit of not having to press loads of buttons. All I have to do really is use the walkie-talkie, but then, you know, do the translating. It's wonderful. I mean, it's a perfect playground. Mainly because, you know, we don't have to act so much. If everything actually works, then you can just use the equipment as opposed to pretending that it works, and that's wonderful.
I was thinking about the fact that both your characters are kind of underestimated, but in, you know, different ways, because they've got very different roles. What did you kind of bring, I guess, because to the background to each of their characters and the position that they're in, and how that informs the decisions they're making. So for Jeff, you know, he's kind of having to prove himself on that day.
Yeah, that's constant when you're in this career as an actor, having to prove yourself to everyone all the time. So it's something very familiar, wanting to stay true to what you want as an artist, but also advance your career. These are things that are very present, I think, for most people who are in our industry of filmmaking. So that was really, besides the homework of learning how to call a show, that was a real place that I drew kind of inspiration from.
And for Marianne, I mean, on multiple levels, you know, kind of a bit of a prejudice, you know, from some of the characters of her being German. And then this moment where she sent out the room to go and get the coffee and said, oh, you've just sent out the one person who understands the German out the room. I just think that's brilliant. So, you know, was that another layer to the character, the fact that she's facing this kind of prejudice and sexism?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, you know, as for preparation for that side of the character, I think I'm not going to have to tell another woman that it don't have to look far to draw on personal experiences. But no, I think what is lovely about the character of Marianne is that, so Tim won't mind me saying this, he grew up with 3 older sisters, maybe it's 4. They started telling him to write good female characters from a very early age. So, and I know that it killed him that there wasn't room for a lot more of you know, female characters in this. So I really love that him and Moritz went out of their way to make Marianne into the, I don't know, the Swiss Army knife of the crew, who, you know, the person who is always a couple of steps ahead and already has the solution. And I love that scene with the coffee is like, it has a feminist punchline, and yeah, I really appreciate that.
I think the film, obviously, we're taking into the shoes of these individuals in this very specific circumstance, but it's also raising a lot of bigger questions, as you were mentioning at the beginning, about kind of the role of journalism and how it becomes, you know, kind of a power and a responsibility. You know, the nature of truth itself can almost become quite subjective, you know, and obviously it's exaggerated now with social media and how quickly information can spread, whether that's accurate or not. So what questions do you think this film can raise?
I mean, I hope for people who consume, I mean, we all consume this kind of news currently, which, as you said, has become just inflated in, you know, in the sensationalism and the clicks and who can tell it and just the immediacy. So I hope everyone kind of takes a look at their own consumption, because I think that's where the change can really happen in how news is relayed. You know, I don't know if you always have to say this about information, what's required for, you know, you can get information without violence, you know. So I think that these are the questions that we're trying to pose and we want people to ask.
I just listened to a brilliant podcast. It was the Trevor Noah What Now with Yuval Noah Harari, and he talks about, well, obviously AI, but I found myself thinking a lot about the topics of our film when he talks about social media and the way it's changed the way we consume news, and how as a society we are at the moment quite in danger of mistaking information with knowledge or an understanding, and the importance of context and actually experts who provide that. And it's just, I continue to be flabbergasted by the amount of people that are bored with experts. Give us the experts, please. Someone explain to me, give me all the information, and then tell me what happened.
Listen to it, or don't acknowledge that they are experts. That, you know, you throw them under the bus, and you don't want the intellectuals, and you don't want the people who know, and it's wild. It's a wild thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. Huge congratulations on the film. Can't wait for Vanessa
Thank
to see
you
it.
very much.
Thanks a lot. Lovely to meet you.